Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I have a very solid team to share with you guys, and this team involves Thunderfang Steelix. It is one of the best Pokemon to use this season, and I was so surprised at how good it is. You guys know, Thunderfang got buffed, it now generates more energy, and Steelix is going to be getting to those charge moves a lot faster now. It is going to be doing really well against some of the top meta Pokemon, especially flyers, because of that Thunderfang, of course. And it is going to be pretty decent against water types like Feraligatr. So I ended up having a really good time with Steelix. With the team that you guys are seeing on the left, I got a 4-1 and then a 5-0, so we managed to get some pretty solid wins with this team. The only Pokemon on this team that I would actually change out for something else if I can find a replacement is that Shadow Drifblim, because I feel like the team is still ABA weak to some Pokemon like Alolan Sandslash especially, and maybe Dunsparce, although Steelix can handle the Dunsparce pretty well with those Thunder Fangs, and if you debuff it with that Psychic Fangs, then you can kind of take care of it with Steelix. But still, that Drifblim, I feel like I can switch it out for something else. Also, I should say, the team is kind of ABA weak to Stunfisk. And you guys know that Stunfisk recently got buffed because of a Thundershock buff. It now does more damage, and a lot more people are using it because it is definitely more viable this season. So those are some of the Pokemon that I was kind of struggling against with this team. I would like to build another team with the Annihilape and Steelix core, although I would put the Annihilape on the lead. I'd put Steelix in the back, and then I would have a third Pokemon. Maybe Dunsparce could work, and Dunsparce could be the safe swap in that situation. But I am going to test those teams out later. Maybe today, maybe tomorrow. You guys are also going to notice that at the beginning of the video, I am running the Galarian Corsola in place of that Drifblim, but I realized very quickly that my team is extremely weak to a certain ground and normal type Pokemon. Yes, I was ABA weak to Diggersby, and I came up against one and I couldn't do anything. So I realized that I couldn't run Galarian Corsola with Steelix, and I put Drifblim in place of that Corsola, and it took care of those weaknesses a lot better. Basically with Steelix, you just need to pair it with a Pokemon that is going to cover for those ground types like Clodsire, especially Clodsire. Steelix is really going to struggle against Clodsire with that Thunderfang, and of course, fighting types. So I felt like Drifblim really covered those well. But like I said, there is still a slight weakness to Alolan Sandslash. There is also a weakness to Obstagoon, but really, who's running Obstagoon? But until I find a better replacement for Drifblim, this is what I was running. Now, really quickly, make note of the matchup that is going on the screen right now. We have our Steelix up against a Guzzlord, and the Guzzlord is destroying us. So you guys will also notice that at the beginning of this video, I was running Steelix with Crunch and Psychic Fangs, which is the recommended moveset on PV Poke. But this match here really did it for me. I was like, that's it, I am not running Crunch. I'm gonna run Breaking Swipe on my Steelix. And I needed to point that out because there's a lot of you who get really offended when I use a moveset that's different than what's recommended on PV Poke. Some of you guys get really mad and feel the need to tell me in my comments that I should not be doing this because it's forbidden. But yes, I am running Breaking Swipe on my Steelix, and I stand by it. And yes, I am running Ice Punch on my Annihilape because I hate running close combat, debuffing my Pokemon, and basically making it useless after using that debuff move. And Ice Punch recently got buffed, so I feel like Annihilape is really viable with Ice Punch. And guess what? We end up landing a buffed Ice Punch on a Jumpluff in this video. It was very satisfying, and I stand by each of my decisions. So I'm running Breaking Swipe on Steelix, and I am running Ice Punch on Annihilape. Deal with it! Anyways, that's enough ranting from me. Let's just jump into the battles because I have some really nice ones for you guys today. Now, I've included this battle because this is where I realized that the Galarian Corsola paired with the Steelix was a terrible idea because we come up against the Diggersby on the lead. I'm like, oh no, what do? I panic, I swap into Corsola. Corsola is not going to be able to do anything against this Diggersby. I probably should have just stayed in with my Steelix, honestly. And my opponent's backline is going to be pretty good against our Steelix, so really I had nowhere to go with that Pokemon. But I come in with Corsola. We basically get wrecked by the Diggersby. I let Corsola go, and then I come in with Annihilate, and I'm able to farm their Diggersby down completely. Now they bring in a Jumpluff, which is absolutely going to destroy our Annihilate. We go for an Ice Punch, and my opponent even shields that, so that's unfortunate for me. I then swap into my Steelix, and my opponent's final Pokemon is a Shadow Quagsire. So they are running ABA Ground, ABA weak to Grass types as well, although the Diggersby did get that buff for Fire Punch, so Fire Punch is going to be doing more damage. But anyways, we are going to get absolutely destroyed in this match. My opponent still has a full health Jumpluff in the back. I don't know why I'm shielding here. This game is basically over for me. I'm wasting time. But yeah, we are going to get destroyed by the Jumpluff, and my opponent is going to take that win. Alright, so I got my butt kicked, and I learned my lesson. I'm going to go ahead and take that Galarian Corsola off the team. As much as I love it, and it's like my brand new baby that I just recently built, I do have to replace it with something that is going to better handle the Diggersby, that also handles Clodsire, and that also handles fighters. So Drifblim really seemed like the best answer here. Now moving on to the next battle, we're going to be up against a Bibarel on the lead, which our Steelix is actually going to do really well against because it is running Rollout. Rollout is going to be resisted by Steelix, and our Thunderfangs are going to be super effective. Now my opponent swaps out into a Malamar, and my backline is going to struggle against this Pokemon for sure. So I'm choosing to stay in this, go for these Breaking Swipes to weaken this Malamar. They did go for a superpower. I shielded the first one, and they went for a second one, which I let go because it was going to do less damage. And we were able to handle the Malamar with our Steelix. Now my opponent's final Pokemon is going to be a Skeledirge. I bring in my Drifblim, I go ahead and shield the Shadow Ball, and then my opponent swaps back out into their Bibarel. I'm able to come in with my Annihilate, farm the Bibarel down completely, leave with almost 2 Rage Fists for the Skeledirge, but it's not going to matter much because I'm not going to be able to reach a move on my Drifblim either way, so getting the shields out of the way wasn't really important. I was going to rely on the Astonishes to take that Skeledirge out before they could reach a move. Thankfully, we're able to do that, and we take that win. Moving on to the next battle, we're going to be up against a Primeape on the lead. Now, this is where I feel like Annihilate would make a much better lead with Steelix because most of the leads I was seeing were either weak to fighting types or were going to be that Primeape. Primeape was a very common lead that I was seeing. However, I come in with my Annihilate, I take the first Rage Fist from that Primeape, and then I shield the second one, and I'm able to counter them down, and then my opponent brings in a Shadow Marowak. Okay, we go for that Ice Punch, but unfortunately for me, my opponent uses a shield for it. And here, even if I didn't know what my opponent's final Pokemon was, I decided to shield the Rock Slide because I was actually calling double ground in the back, but I was thinking that it might be the Gastrodon, and everything from Gastrodon would be resisted on my Drifblim, so I would have preferred to shield the Rock Slide. However, it ends up being Clodsire, and either way, that decision was the right decision because it's running Sludge Bomb and Earthquake, both which are going to be resisted by Drifblim, and we end up taking another win there. Now, this set is a 3-2, however, we didn't play this whole set with this team. So I was trying out a few different teams at the beginning of the set. I was trying to make Shadow Gliscor work, but it's still kind of bad in my opinion. But anyways, moving on to the next battle, we are going to be up against a Jumpluff on the lead, and my opponent swaps out into a Dunsparce. Okay, so this is telling me that my opponent might be running double normal types in the back, and I might want to save my Annihilate. So I am going to start buffing my Rage Fist against this Dunsparce, and I'm going to shield the second Drill Run. Now, I'm going to go for an Ice Punch here, a buffed Ice Punch. Let's see if my opponent lets it land on their Shadow Jump Fluff. They do, and then I swap back out into my Steelix because I want to save my Annihilate. I end up being wrong. My opponent has an Annihilate of their own in the back, and that is kind of going to destroy our Steelix, but we are going to be able to go for Psychic Fangs, which are super effective against their Annihilate. They are now very low. I'm going to be able to come in with Drifblim, go for one Astonish, take that Annihilate out, and then as soon as my opponent sees Drifblim, they go ahead and they top left. Moving on to the next battle, we're going to be up against a Galarian Moltres on the lead, and this is a really nice lead for us because most Galarian Moltreses are going to be running Brave Bird and Ancient Power, and Steelix is going to be resisting both of those moves. Now my opponent goes for a Brave Bird, and then they swap out into Feraligatr, and I kind of have to stay in this. So I'm going to go ahead and shield here because I want to get the Feraligatr lower. This Feraligatr can destroy my backline. So I get it into a range where I'm okay with letting my Steelix go. I come back in with Annihilate, really hoping that my opponent would bring that Moltres back in, but Moltres is pretty low now, so I should be able to take care of it with the 2 Pokemon that I have left. And my opponent's final Pokemon is going to be a Gastrodon. They shielded my first Rage Fist, and then they tried to catch the second one on Moltres, but I farmed them down, and then my opponent went ahead and top lefted. GG's to our opponent. Moving on to the next battle, we're going to be up against a Drapion on the lead, and I believe this just needs to land 2 Aqua Tails on Steelix to take us out. But this is where Breaking Swipe is actually better for me than Crunch. I am going to go for that Breaking Swipe. Unfortunately, I don't get a debuff, but I'm going to go ahead and shield the next Aqua Tail. And it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to farm them down completely, so I panic swap into my Annihilate and I catch the Aqua Tail on Annihilate. Okay, at least I drew out the Feraligatr here. That means this Feraligatr is not going to be up against our Drifblim. And that is pretty good because now I can handle this Feraligatr with my Steelix. It is now in a range where I can take it out with Drifblim, and hopefully my opponent's third Pokemon is something I can handle with my final Pokemon. It looks like it is going to be a Serperior, and this is going to be very good for me, but they have 2 shields left, so I have to keep that in mind. I'm going to start debuffing them with these Icy Winds. I need to reach 3 in order to take this Serperior out. I'm going to go for a second one here, and now these Aerial Aces are going to hurt a lot less on Drifblim. Let's see how much it does. Yeah, 2 is definitely not enough to take us out, so I should be able to astonish their Serperior down and comfortably take that win. GG's to our opponent. Now moving right along to the next battle, I think my opponent messes up here because we get a terrible lead of Gastrodon. I swap into Annihilate and my opponent brings in a Morpeko, and my opponent actually had a better answer to Annihilate in the back. I could have gotten destroyed by this team, but we are going to be able to counter this Morpeko down. I no-shielded the first Psychic Fangs. We're able to take the Morpeko out with our Annihilate, and then they have a Shadow Zapdos in the back. I'm going to go for a Rage Fist, take a shield from my opponent, and then I can come in with Steelix, which is absolutely going to wall this Zapdos. And now I'm going to have my Drifblim up against their Gastrodon, and my opponent is going to go ahead and top left. So I think they misclicked there. I think they meant to bring in Zapdos, but they brought in Morpeko. In this next battle, we get another terrible lead of Primeape, and I swap into Annihilate. I take the first Rage Fist, as I always do, and then my opponent swaps out into a Clodsire. This is why I'm running that Ice Punch. It is going to hit for super effective against Clodsire. However, they are going to go for an Earthquake here and take us out, and I'm going to bring in Drifblim, but I don't know what possessed me to shield here, but I get so lucky because my opponent is actually running Stone Edge, so I have no idea how I called that. Lucky for us, we end up shielding it. Our Drifblim is still very healthy. And then my opponent brings in a Morpeko. Okay, I think... Am I going to lose this? I don't know. Let's see. I'm going to go for a Psychic Fangs now up against this Primeape. And I call that this is a Rage Fist. Okay, good call. I think I have to shield this next move, or I let it go. Okay, I let the next Rage Fist go. Okay, my opponent is going to take me out. And oh, I see, I have a shield left for my Drifblim. So I should be able to reach an Icy Wind on this Morpeko, and hopefully it'll be enough to take them out. If not, then I am in trouble. But we're going to go for that Icy Wind. They survived, but we're able to do one more Astonish. I don't know why my opponent didn't throw the Psychic Fangs there. I think they definitely would have been able to take us out, but we get a 5-0 in that set. And I'm happy that we got the 5-0 in that set particularly because I get all that Stardust. Okay, on to the next battle. I get a Venusaur on the lead, and I'm like, this might be a little bit problematic. They are going to hit us for a lot of damage with that Frenzy Plant, but at least the Psychic Fangs are going to be super effective. We're able to go for a Psychic Fangs. It lands, and they let us get to another one. They want to farm us down. So I am going to take a shield from my opponent, but now my opponent has a lot of energy on this Venusaur. I'm going to come in with my Drifblim and take the Frenzy Plant, even though it does so much damage. It is resisted. But yeah, my opponent is going to bring in a Drapion now. Okay, I swap immediately into my Annihilate, and I was happy that they were staying in for a second, but then they bring in Gastrodon. Let's see how this goes. If I can reach enough Icy Winds on my Drifblim, then maybe I can handle the Drapion. And thankfully for me, my opponent actually ends up using their final shield on Gastrodon. Now they reach another Body Slam, and I end up shielding it because my Drifblim is getting really low. But I should be able to reach 2 Icy Winds now against this Drapion. Both of them should be enough to KO, and we are going to take this win as well. GG's to our opponent. Moving on to the next battle, we're going to be up against a Primeape on the lead. Terrible lead for us. As always, I will swap into my Annihilate, but what happened here was my opponent actually swapped immediately into Feraligatr without even seeing that I was going to swap out. So if I had just stayed in with my Steelix, I would have been able to handle this and I would have still had my Annihilate. But yeah, they end up taking out our Annihilate with Feraligatr, and then I come in with Steelix. I have to shield one of the Hydro Cannons, and I'm able to Thunder Fang their Feraligatr down. Now, if I had known what my opponent had in the back, I would not have shielded that Rage Fist because my opponent's final Pokemon is a Morpeko. A lot of people are using Morpeko, I realized, this season. It is better than it used to be, but still, it's not great for my Drifblim, that's for sure, but I'm going to have to take an Aura Wheel now from this Morpeko, and they are going to go for a Dark-type Aura Wheel against our Steelix. It really hurts. I'm going to be able to go for a Breaking Swipe here, and it's not enough to take their Morpeko out, so my opponent is going to be able to win this with the tiniest bit of health left, but GG's to our opponent. Okay, now this is the Pokemon that I'm afraid of seeing on the lead. It is going to be an Alolan Sandslash, and I'm just going to stay in this with Steelix, and I'm going to try to damage it as much as possible. I am going to shield the first move, and my plan is to get it really low and then swap into my Annihilate and try to counter it down before my opponent reacts. Thankfully, it works out for us in this game, but it's not always going to work out that way. But we're able to counter it down, and then my opponent brings in a Drifblim. At least I'm able to reach 2 Rage Fists against this Drifblim, get it into the yellow, and then I can come back in with Steelix. I am going to take a Shadow Ball here, which I'm okay with. And then my opponent swaps out into a Dragonair. I have enough energy for the Breaking Swipe, which I'm going to go for, and they no-shield it. So their Dragonair is very low now. We're able to take them out with our Drifblim, and then I can Astonish their Drifblim down, and we are going to take that win because our Steelix is still alive. GG's to our opponent. Moving on to the next battle, we're going to be up against a streamer, I believe, a Mind Joke. And unfortunately for him, he is going to be running Morpeko on the lead into our Steelix, and he swaps out immediately into a Gliscor, and I am going to bring in my Drifblim and hope that he's not running Night Slash. He's running Aerial Ace. I am able to take him out with an Icy Wind, and then he brings out Morpeko back in, and I'm even able to reach another Icy Wind and take a shield from him. Okay. Now, his final Pokemon is going to be Azu. I'm going to stay in with my Steelix against this Azu, and I'm going to call that it's running Ice Beam. I kind of need to save both of my shields here for Annihilate. Annihilate is going to be able to handle the Morpeko that my opponent has left in the back. However, Morpeko has a lot of energy, so I need to keep that in mind. I'm gonna let my Steelix go here. I should be able to counter the Azu down with my Annihilate. However, my opponent swaps out into that Morpeko. I call the first move. Thankfully, it is Psychic Fangs, and I should be able to safely shield the next move that my opponent is going to throw, counter the Morpeko down, counter the Azu down, and take that win. GG's to our opponent, but unfortunately for them, that was kind of a hard counter. Moving on to the next battle, we're going to be up against an Ariados on the lead. My Steelix is going to be very good against this. We have the Psychic Fangs to hit for super effective against Ariados. I'm going to go for that Psychic Fangs now. And my opponent actually ends up shielding it, which is very interesting. I should be able to survive a second Trailblaze, but I won't be able to survive a third. Now, my opponent manages to catch the next Psychic Fangs on Diggersby, and I'm going to bring in my Annihilate. Okay, I decide to shield Scorching Sands here because I know that I can keep my Annihilate kind of healthy. And also, my opponent is not going to be able to reach another Scorching Sands. They are going to reach a Fire Punch, however, which is completely fine. I'm okay with taking that. And then I can go for a Rage Fist against their Ariados. Okay, my opponent's final Pokemon is going to be Morpeko yet again. So many people running Morpeko. And our Annihilate is just absolutely going on a rampage in this game. We're going to be able to land a Rage Fist on Morpeko, counter it down, and my opponent isn't even going to see my final Pokemon. And that is going to be a nice 4-1 to end off this video. I did play with this team again today, and I got another 5-0 with it, which was really nice. So I can highly recommend this team to you guys. But if you've made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. If you guys like my content, please consider subscribing. Maybe leave a like, it helps me out so much, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye bye!